everybody. My name is Chris Wagner. Welcome to Kratos BI. Today we're going to be going over 3 specific options when it comes to natural language generation. Let's head on over to it. Alright, before we get started on anything, make sure you go down, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that little alarm notification so you get notified every time I put out new videos and new content. This is all for you, so please, 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 if you have questions, comments, or anything, leave them in the comments below. Happy to respond, help people understand how to work through these things, all right? But first things first, for those of you who aren't familiar with what the heck is natural language generation, basically what this does is it interprets data and it creates a narrative or a story of what's happening inside of that information. This basically helps people who aren't as data inclined to understand exactly what's going on there. It can provide insights. It can show you what you should be focusing in on, or more importantly, maybe there's nothing to look at, right? And sometimes that's more important than anything else. So that's one of the big benefits when it comes to natural language generation. The reason for this is Gartner has kind of identified that by 2025, augmented analytics, these types of AIs that help people understand information, and the way we consume this is going to have penetrated 75% of the data stories that people are actually consuming. That's a big deal, right? Because there's going to be lots of stuff that's not consumed. All right, and the reason for this is 65% of people are not getting the information that they need from the reports and analytics that they have. They look at it, they don't understand it, and they just end up going with their gut, and then often they end up not coming back to your reports. This is a big problem. This is something that is up to you and me and everyone working with this stuff to fix that. That's where NLG comes in. All right, NLG really gives you 3 main categories that allows for telling these stories. It's speed. You could create, you're going to see this in just a second, but you could create insane stories just on the fly, rapid fire. Like as people click, these stories rewrite themselves, and if you have to see it to believe it. I was blown away by this. So the second thing is all around automation. How can you get this out to people faster, better, stronger, right? Your CEO, he's got a fleet of people who can look at data, interpret it, and give him response back. But your CEO is one guy in your company has that at his disposal. We need to extend that out to those frontline analysts or those people working at the front lines, working with your customers. How can they best understand what's going on with that customer? NLG enables that. And then the big thing here is, can this be scalable? Can we extend this out and make this available as part of how your users consume and work with information? That's the other value prop that we have here. When I went through all these 3 competitors, and when I talk about the 3 competitors, it's Microsoft, Aria, and Narrative Sciences. I evaluated them based upon their simplicity to build, the ability to customize them, the narrative that was then generated, and then the overall solution, okay? Let's talk about Microsoft. Microsoft just came out with their narrative solution. This is built into the product. It's now literally part of the solution. It's part of every text box that's out there. I think this hit in November. It's flat out incredible. You should really go in and make sure you check it out. I can't wait to show you the demo. Next one is Aria. Aria has been a big hitter out there in this space for many years now. I know many customers that currently have this. They come with an entire studio of solutions that they have. In the demo I'm going to give today, it's going to be focusing on the Power BI integration, but you can do this exact same integration across their entire suite. So we're talking about business intelligence, apps, your Q&A for your bots, connecting, and even, all the way down to Excel. It's really a pretty impressive solution. The way that Aria is able to do this is because they have an architecture where this is completely API driven, right? Feed in a bit of data, spits out a narrative. That's about as simple as it gets, and that's what makes it so flexible. Right, and then the next big competitor that's out there is narrative science. narrative science has been a big leader in this field. They're generating so much of the content when you go online and in the web behind the scenes. So much of that is narrative sciences. It's really quite impressive. But their solution really helps extend any and all work that people in the data field is working to be able to connect that to the business users that are out there. That's an incredible business offering or business value prop that they have. And their entire focus is on, as an organization, is how do they make data storytelling easier for people to consume in a way that you don't have to be some like deep wonk analyst to make this work, right? Now, all right, let's head over to my desktop and let's check this out. Boom. Okay, so I'm going to run through quickly the solution that I have, which is for Microsoft, Aria, and Narrative Sciences. You're going to see how this works. Okay, so the first one, let's look at Microsoft's solution. As you can see, I can build out a Power BI dashboard like I normally would. As I interact with it, Power BI interacts and slices and dices just as you normally would. But here is the narrative science, or here is the Microsoft's narrations that they have. This is super easy to implement. This is just a visual inside of here. Where did you go? A smart narrative. I don't remember how to zoom, but I'll zoom in post. But it's just a real easy drag and drop. Aria, on the other hand, they've got another. Here's their solution. Again, you click on things, the narration, it just slices and dices and automatically refreshes and rewrites itself. And then here is the narrative sciences solution. Again, you go in, click, it rewrites itself based upon the insights that it's able to find and generate based upon the information that you feed it. All right. But we want to do an actual demo of how this actually works and how you build it. Now, Microsoft hands down has the easiest solution. So I'm going to delete this. Come on. All right. So if I'm just starting from a regular build, I build out my dashboard to make it look and feel the way I want it to. I bring forward all the insights that I want my my smart narrative to write about. I click on smart narrative, and a smart narrative is just generated. It's as easy as that. Now you could go in and you can muck around with all the different customizations. You can change things. You can highlight things. This video doesn't. I'm not going to try to go into all of the functions that you could do in here. I will say that it is as customizable as you want to be, but it is not as GUI driven as I think some of the other things that you're going to need. That could be good and that could be bad, just depending upon your specific use case. All right, when it comes to Aria build, I'm going to let you know this is one that I had the most problem with. It wasn't terrible, but I did need to get some help from my good friends at Aria. Frankly, the help was 5 minutes, so it was, it really wasn't that bad. And if you're going to implement any of these things at a broad organization, please make sure you plan to do trainings anyways to show people how to best use these toolings, because being able to write dynamic stories is something very new for people. All right, but I'm going to start out with a grid of data to make it just easier to implement. So I add this in. I've already imported in my Aria Natural Language Insights. If I did not have this in, I just go up to Get More Visuals, and I'd either import the visual from a file if I downloaded it, or if you're an organization, and I highly recommend, if you're an organization and you're publishing this inside your organization, this is something that has to be done by your administrators. But go and publish that visual into my organization up here. This will make it easier for you to distribute any updates or anything that happens with the visual, okay? But I go in, I install I install the visual. I also, another good thing for why you should start with a grid in this case is you want to see the data that's being passed back to the narrative to be written, so that when you can test it out, making sure that all of these values change as you're working with the visual, right? Like you know, if you're not familiar with the model and you know you're not sure what's being passed back, this is a good tip for how you can make that happen right away. But once I have this right, this is the information I want to get my feedback on. I'm going to click on, I'm going to switch this. I'm going to select my grid. I'm going to click on my add narrative. This is going to launch, and this is going to ask me to log in for first time. Okay, once you log in, you're going to click on NLG Apps. And I'm going to expand this out so you can see it clearly. All right, now it's going to ask me a bunch of questions. Some of the big things that you're going to want to, I guarantee you, this was the part that I had biggest challenge on, was getting my year and quarter to work as a date time, because I wanted to be able to evaluate things over time. I had to futz with it. That was where I needed the 5 minutes of help. Other than that, super easy, right? I add in my the dimensions that I want, as well as my one measure that I have. So I've got my time dimensions. I've got my dimensions for occupation and for product. And now I want to evaluate the sales amount, okay? I go to next. I choose a time-based variance because I want to evaluate these products over time. I can either do summary, which will just give me a little tiny blurb. That might be great. I can go to important things, or I can say, you know what? I want to know everything. Tell me everything. And for the purposes of this demo and to illustrate how detailed this can be, I'm going to say generate everything. I'm going to go ahead and hit generate text. Aha! I now have my narrative all written up that exists inside here. Now when I go and I click on my graph, my narrative will rewrite itself, and I'll be off to the races. All right. So that's Aria. Now, narrative sciences, we're going to do the exact same thing that we did when it comes to building this out. I'm going to pick a grid of information that I want the narrative to write itself on. I'm going to make sure that it interacts the way I'd want, that it slices, it dices, these numbers change. I'm good to go. And then again, I'm going to go up and I'm going to install the narratives for Power BI from Narrative Science. Again, either by importing a visual from a file or from my organization. Once that's in, I'm going to select the grid of information that I have, and I'm going to click on Narratives for Power BI. Now, it's this narrative science is going to prompt me to run through what I have here. Now, I'm going to, again, I want to do a continuous, so this is sales by month. I'm going to click on Write Narrative. Now, as you can see, it's going to choose a whole bunch of defaults from the information I passed. It's pretty smart. It's going to kind of jump into these things. But I can click on that cog, and I can start to go through here, and I can make some changes if I want, right? So in this year, I can put in some pseudonyms, right? So I could say year and years, and oh, I like this. Oh, sales territory. It's not subcategory. Subcategory. It's territory. Territories, right? I can. Oh, and I can even add in variation. So let's say we call it territory and territories, but we also call it sales group. Sales groups. This, in writing this out, it'll start to mix that up. All right. For characterizations, here's a big thing that you can flip it around. So if you're going from 2010 to 2012, sometimes it needs a little help in understanding the direction of your date dimension and stuff like that. It's a little weird. I'm not sure why, but okay, you can set that there. And then for however many measures I have, I can go in and I can define for the measure, what is it? Reseller sales amount, that's money. I want it to show as, the US dollar. Huh, interesting. I could say larger values are good, yes, and we want to sum those up. I could talk about if there's a relationship between these, like, is this something like a year-to-date value that's going to continue to move up and down, right? Like, is this a proportion, right? Actual benchmark. Again, not going into tons of details on each of these things. Last thing I'm going to say here, though, is you can identify with good changes. You can highlight those and bad changes. This is a key note that I always point out. Our human brains have been cognitively trained to respond overly negative to red values. So select purple. Studies have shown that people recognize purple as negative as well. You know, they'll recognize that if you have green and you have purple, they'll see that, but they won't respond as disproportionately to purple as they will to red. So, just a little pro tip. If you have a business requirement that says it has to be red, it has to be red. Okay, and then I'm done. A additional thing that you can do when it comes to configuring this is inside the format button. You can go over to narratives, choose how you want this to be done, continuous. And here's a big one. You can either choose if you want it to be a paragraph, right? Like, do you want it to be written out like you would a USA Today story? You read that, or do you want it to be a bulleted list? And then again, how much detail do you want them to go? Like, you can choose between high, medium, and low. I think in this case, we'll just choose high, and we'll be done. I'll go back to my report, and now my narratives are done. Okay. All right. So, all right. I know what you're asking. Like, which one did I like better? What did I like worse? As I start to compare them, I did a deep dive. I spent a lot of time, much more than what you saw right there, running through these. And so I said I graded them over 4 different areas: simplicity, customization, narrative generated, and solution. Well, what are the results? All right. When it comes to simplicity, I thought the 2 that are the absolute simplest to work with were the Microsoft and the Narrative Science solution, followed very closely by Aria's solution. So I gave both Microsoft and Narrative Science a gold medal in this, and Aria a silver medal. All of them were very good. I thought that when it comes to ease of use, Microsoft's just click a button and it's there is insanely easy, right? Whereas Narrative Science is just as close, but it makes it really easy for people to go in and customize, and you don't have to know a lot about nothing to make this work really great. The challenges I had around that I mentioned before around getting the date time stuff to work with Aria, that's why I'm giving that a silver medal. When it talks to customization, though, I put Aria and Narrative Sciences up at the top, especially because of how simple it is to go in and customize this and drive this. This means anyone can do this, right? This is if it's your first day working with Power BI and someone says, hey, you can use this Aria or this Narrative Science custom visual, you'll be able to run through this without any issues whatsoever. The Microsoft stuff you can use too. It's just a click of a button. But when it comes to customizing, that's when you start to have to get into like knowing DAX and knowing all these other formulas and be able to do these deep dives into it. And for a lot of people, that's more than what they're going to be able to do. So Aria and Narrative Sciences win it when it comes to customization. When it comes to the narrative generated, though, I think there's 3 distinct levels. Narrative Sciences narrative is far and away the gold standard. They're still crushing it in this space when it comes to insights generated, the depth of the information, customization, how it can work and play. They really, really did a great job. Second place is Aria. They too do a really good job of going in and telling a rich story that people can understand what's going on, see what's happening in their business, gain insights. And then the bronze category is Microsoft. I will say recently, I don't know what they're doing in the service to upgrade the story, but the stories have been coming out much better today than they were when this was first released in November. I don't know if they have some sort of AI learning that's going on in the background or something, but Just I know you're doing something really good there. This by the time anyone watches this video, maybe Microsoft is bumped up and has gotten smarter. But at the time of filming, this is the categories that I got. All right, and then when it comes to the overall solution, um, and it comes to architecture and design, I put Aria up at top. Their completeness of their solution, the different aspects that they have when it comes to providing natural language generation across a platform, across your services. Aria far and away crushes it. Second place is Narrative Sciences. They have a great either solution when it comes to their architecture. You can either use their service and just license it, and they process everything. They don't retain any information, but it is a secure web call back and forth. So if you have security requirements that go beyond that, that's when you can actually install and run that internally inside your organization to make that work. So that works very well as well. And then last place or bronze medal is Microsoft. I'm sure this is going to expand. I'm sure we'll start to see these insights appear in other places. But for now, as far as I know and can find, and really, it's just locked inside the Power BI solution without any other alternatives there. With that said, on the Microsoft side, it is just readily available, right? You just click it and it's just there. So there's nothing else to worry about, nothing else to manage. That's why the simplicity gets it actually into the bronze instead of not placing. But they did, it is a good solution. Overall, here are some of the pros and cons of working with each of these different solutions. I'll let you kind of look over all of these together. All of these have different, reasons why you'd want to use Microsoft or Narrative Sciences or Aria. You really need to decide what's going to be best for you and your organization. This is not going to be a one-size-fits-all type thing. In fact, my recommendation for anyone is, you have the Microsoft solution. Really, the question becomes: do you do narrative sciences? Do you do narrative sciences or do you do Aria to enhance and add in more detail and context inside your solutions? I hope that you guys found this helpful. I really, really, absolutely love these narratives that are generated, how we can build this into our solutions, how we can extend our ability to more and more people. If you're not using this inside your solutions, well, straight up, you should be. Please, if you have questions, please let me know. Post them in the comments down below. Again, hit that like, subscribe bell. Thank you guys so very much. Peace.